Hello everyone. Today's video is going to be a beautiful terracotta pendant studded with rhinestones. This is a slab of 0.6 centimeters in thickness. I smoothened this using my fettling knife. Using a square shaped cookie cutter, I cut out a square shape, and using a smaller shaped cookie cutter, I cut out 4 such shapes from the same slab. Now I use a triangular shaped cookie cutter and cut out 2 such shapes. Now all these pieces are part of the pendant, which is why they are all 0.6 centimeters in thickness. Now this one is 0.25 or 0.3 centimeters in thickness, which is for the earrings. Using a small cookie cutter, I cut out a pair. Now it's time to smoothen all of the individual pieces. I'm again using my fettling knife to smoothen out the surface. I repeat the same thing for everything, including the stud part of the earring. Now using a cookie cutter, I'm just making this kind of a curve shape on the 4 corners of the pendant. Using a concentric cookie cutter, basically a smaller size, again repeating the design on the 4 corners. Using a pen cap, just a little circle in the center. Now this particular brush tip, rather the back of the brush, seemed to have a diameter which was just a little over the size of the rhinestone that I have. Now I don't have kundan here. I was not able to actually order them, so I'm actually using rhinestones. So I'm just making basically a depression, rather a dent, or creating like a socket where these rhinestones would go typically after the pendant is fired. I'm using a small nozzle to create this kind of a small design. You can also use a ballpoint pen refill if you do not have something like this. Now this is for the stud basically. So I'm using a gauge 26 wire, and this one, which is part of the pendant, I'm going to be putting 2 holes in all the 4 squares. I'm using my needle tool for this. And for the triangular part, I'm going to be adding 3 hooks, 3 Nichrome wire U-pins, which is gauge 24. One on the top and 2 at the base. Just in this manner. Attaching a few stick beads to the base of the pendant. Nichrome wire hooks on the top. This is again gauge 24. I'm going to be adding 4 hooks on the top. So if you see, the pendant is ready, and at least everything else is also ready. Now it's obviously it's time to make the jhumka part. It's a very simple conical shaped jhumka. So I just cut out a pair of this. I make it into a round ball, and you've probably seen me make a conical jhumka several times using these 3 fingers. I'm going to be using the same technique. I'm just using my thumb, my index, and my middle finger to basically make this kind of a conical shaped one, and just basically neaten the shape. It's a very simple pair of jhumkas. I'm just going to be drawing a line using my fettling knife. Just trying to draw it slowly so that the lines actually meet. Adding a few stick beads at the base. I have actually flattened the top of the jhumka. Now attaching the stud part. Once again, the Nichrome wire hooks that I'm using for the earrings are all gauge 26. Now that you see everything is ready, we'll just let it dry for a few days and then get it fired. Once the set is fired, it's time to paint upon it. So if you see, I've actually laid out everything that is required, all the paints, the brushes, the rhinestones, everything. So the colors that I've basically chosen are red and green. The paints are antique gold, black, red, and a dark green. My brushes basically are my standard. I just go for a broad bristle and liner brush. I just keep something middle, probably handy, maybe like a 2 or a 4, probably handy sometimes. But I'm going to be predominantly using my broad bristle and my liner brush for this. Now for assembling this particular pendant, I'm actually going a different route altogether. I'm using these seed beads. Basically, I had seed beads lying around, and I just thought this would be a nice piece to put this and make the assembling for this particular chain. I think it'll be a good combination. I know if you are probably, if you're a traditional terracotta jewelry maker, you may not like this idea, but I genuinely think this would go very well with this particular set. I'm going to be obviously using E6000 and basically a toothpick to attach the rhinestones to the pendant. To me, this is a safe bet because it's a really strong glue. That's why. So if you see, the colors are already laid out in the palette. I'm going to be mixing a little bit of gold and black, green and gold, and red. Just going to dilute it with a little bit of water and start off with a base coat of antique gold all over the pendant, everywhere. Basically, the earrings, all of the attachments that go on to the pendant, everything is going to be covered in a base of antique gold. Now, using a toothpick, I attach a little bit of glue, rather the adhesive, on in every socket, rather in every hole, just so that the rhinestone kind of fixes in well. Now, I think you do have something called as a rhinestone picker, but a rhinestone pick or a picker, I'm not sure what that's called. But because I don't do this very often, I think this just this using my hands was okay. So if you see, obviously the rhinestones are all in place, and just going with my liner brush and doing a little bit of green dots. Basically just adding a little more color to the whole piece. Applying red in the center. Some green on the corners. Now to the jhumka. I'm keeping the jhumka predominantly in gold, in the antique gold color, with just a hint of green, on this particular line. A few dots of gold, antique gold, using my liner brush. I think the pendant looks really pretty. It looks very traditional, actually better than I expected. So this is the varnish that I'm going to be using, obviously after the paint and everything is dried well. In fact, I let the glue dry for almost 3 days and only then actually do this, because E6000 takes a while to dry. I apply a generous coat all over, sides, back, front, everything. One thing though, I found that applying a glossy or a satin varnish doesn't affect the shine of the stone. But if you are using a matte varnish, you might want to actually varnish the pendant and then apply, or rather stick the stones. Now that everything is dried, it's time to assemble. I'm using my gold beads, my seed beads, white seed beads. These are crimp beads, and these are crimp covers. And I've also kept jump rings, but I'm not too sure if I'm going to be using them. Just kept it, just in case. Obviously, a gear wire, and I'm going to be using this cord, which is a perfect match for this particular pendant, for this entire set actually, and my set of pliers. The beginning is obviously, you've seen me do this a bunch of times. A gear wire, I put the crimp bead through the gear wire and then through the pendant, and then I crimp it using my pliers. I cover the crimp bead with a crimp cover and gently close it, making it into a nice beautiful gold bead. And I begin by actually putting in the seed beads in this manner, and then the gold ones go through both the wires together so that it forms this kind of an assembling. Once again, I just thought that this style probably helps it stay more stable, is what I think, which is why I chose this design. But once again, if you're working on a set, you're free to do or change. I'm not too sure if everybody's going to like this, but I really liked this kind of an assembling. And you obviously now understand why I put 2 holes in those pieces. Now, obviously, when it comes to the end, I repeat the same thing. How I began is how I also end it. Crimp bead is in, I press it down using my pliers. I cover that with a crimp cover, and then I cut off the excess using my cutting pliers. That excess wire, I just try and wiggle it in so that it doesn't hurt, because obviously I think I've mentioned this, that the gear wire is pretty sharp. So this is how the assembling is. So I repeat that on the other side as well. Now that you see, I've actually completed the entire piece. I didn't use the jump ring because the hole, or rather the gap over there at the corner triangular bead was way too small. So which is why I added a small extension and attached that particular cord. And for the jhumkas, obviously I'm going to be using E6000 and a pair of stud posts. We let this dry for about 3 full days and only then begin use. And then the set is finally ready. Ta-da! It's a beautiful set. I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out. In fact, it would go perfectly well with my Kerala sari. So I really hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for suggesting this. It's a subscriber request, and I am glad I was able to actually make it. In fact, I think a lot of you have actually asked me this, not just one person. So I really hope you like it. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section. And as always, I'll get back to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for watching.